At Charity Charge, our mission is to power yours. Most banks and financial service providers weren't built for nonprofits. They don't understand your structure or how you operate. That's why we exist. We proudly serve more than 3,000 organizations across the US, offering tools built exclusively for the sector. From credit cards and expense management to bookkeeping and gift cards, every solution is designed to help you minimize operations and supercharge your impact. And we're more than just financial services. We're an educational community. We share resources every day on our podcast, blog, and webinars to help you stay informed, compliant, and empowered. Visit charitycharge.com to learn more and join the community. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Charity Charge Show. This is Grayson Harris, and today we are pleased to be joined by Luke Nicholson. He is the founder of Sleep in Heavenly Peace Beds, and they're doing incredible work actually across the United States. We're excited to get into that story of expansion and how they really fulfill their mission of building and getting beds to the youth that are in need. Luke, thank you so much for coming on today.
Grayson, thanks for having me, my man. This is great.
Well, I'm really looking forward to diving into the mission and the impact that your organization has. Can you tell me though a little bit about the origins of Sleep in Heavenly Peace and really how this all came about?
You bet. I appreciate you having me on. It means so much because, raising awareness about what we do and the problem that we solve is so important because it's so unknown. 13 years ago is when I discovered it and realized no one knew about it as well. And I'm from a small town. You understand? I'm from a town called Kimberly, Idaho, which is by Twin Falls, Idaho, which is actually where I live now. But I mean, we're talking 4,000 people, really small town. As history has it, I've always been involved with my church and more specifically the youth. In fact, I was what was called a young men's president,
Okay.
which is kind of like a youth pastor if you're in the South, but I'm not a pastor. I tell everybody I just loved working with the youth. I did a lot of coaching. I was a high school football coach, and I just loved taking these young men and teaching them life lessons, right? And doing fun stuff with them. And responsibility I had was finding activities for these boys to do on a Wednesday night. And we did Boy Scouts was actually the activity arm of the church at the time. Well, for me, I was kind of the leader of the leaders, right? So I was over the Boy Scout masters, but I also had some responsibilities for some of the activities. And trust me, if you've got kids and your listeners out there that have kids, especially have dealt with teenage kids, finding an activity that does not involve a screen or a computer or some sort of game console, it was difficult, but we were always on the hunt for something fun for these guys. Well, as the story goes, I'm sitting in this leadership meeting. We're talking about the community and how we can help. And then we start talking about a family that the church was actually helping at the time with, food and clothes and rent and all that jazz. And the crazy thing is, again, I'm from a small town. I mean, I know everybody. Everybody knows me, and everybody knows each other, which is both pros and cons. And I knew where everybody lived. I mean, I explored the whole town. At least I thought I did. But this family was just was on hard times. And they actually lived in an apartment I didn't even know existed. I didn't know that building was even there. And so that kind of gives you an idea of how, how, I don't know how to say this, but just how low income it was and what need that this family was in. So when they were talking about the needs, something came up that just kind of shocked me. It almost passed by me, and that the kids didn't have any beds. And I thought, wait a minute. I mean, certainly they've got a mattress or they've got something right there. And when it was told to me that they don't, Grayson, it just hit me up the side of the head like a 2x4. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Like, what are they sleeping on? Like the floor? And I knew right then, okay, that's something, we got to do something about, right? That's just not right. Not in our day and age. And the other thought came to me is like, here's a great opportunity that I can get an Xbox controller out of these young men's hands, put the drill and a sander in it, and I can teach them the joys of building something, and I'm a moderately craftsman kind of guy. I wouldn't say I'm any type of a woodworker, but I know my way around a tool. And I thought, you know what? I've never built a bed before, but I think we can do that with these boys. And so, that night I went home and my daughter had a bunk bed, and so I went down there, tape measure in hand, and was snapping that thing around and writing measurements down, doing all this stuff. And I was really excited. In fact, my wife at the time's like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "You know what? This is what we're doing." And she knows me. She knew me enough to know that when it's in its head, it ain't leaving until it gets done. But It was so awesome, and I was a little worried, you got teenage kids, you got drills, it's in my garage, it's in the middle of December, in the middle of Idaho, which is not a warm time of the season.
Yeah.
Was this gonna be a fun activity? And, Grayson, what was amazing, what was beautiful is to see these boys super excited about being in a cold garage, building a bed for a family, and that was just I mean, it was icing on the cake, it was just great.
That is incredible. And you spoke to this need and how shocked you were about the need that was there within your community. And I'm based out here in Austin, Texas, and I was on your site, and I was shocked to see. I believe in Austin, it's 1,100 beds.
Yeah,
That's the current need, and I believe across the nation, it's in hundreds of thousands.
right. Yeah,
That really kind of blew me away in terms of the scale of potential impact that you're able to make
right.
within your organization. An aspect of what you shared on that story and that I love is I could see how that origin really kind of plays into the shape and mission of the organization today.
Yeah,
Can
yeah,
you speak now? We've talked to the foundations and the foundings of the organization.
yeah.
What does it look like? What does SHP beds look like today?
It's actually funny, it looks the same just on steroids, right?
Yeah.
One thing we found out, the more I delivered beds, the more I discovered how big the problem was. I mean, we'd have a build day. We'd then share pictures and stories of us going and delivering these beds, and people are like, "Whoa, what? Really? That's what those kids were sleeping on?" And it wasn't until about 2018 that we were featured on a hit show called Returning the Favor with Mike Rowe, right? It was on Facebook. They don't have it anymore. It ran 4 seasons, but we were season 2, episode 9, and it was the megaphone that we needed. It launched us. We were reviewed by 10 million people. And what we found, we already knew this, but what the nation found out was how bad child bedlessness A was, and B, there was no solution. I only found one charity in the whole country that actually was providing beds for kids. Now, there was church groups here and there that were doing stuff, but a charity that was focused on just solving this issue, there was only one. And I thought, "You know what? Then we can solve that." And I also knew that this wasn't gonna be solved by some, farm kid from Idaho. There needed to be a platform that people could mimic, people could copy, people could be a part of and know how to do it as simple, easy, transparent as possible. So that's when we really went to work. And when I say it's the same here as just everywhere on steroids, it's true. We developed a very simple process that we worked out the bugs and the kinks here in Idaho, and then we're able to allow people to replicate that. And through the years, we've been able to tweak this and tweak that and do better and whatnot. And now we have over 400 chapters we've trained. We're in 47 states, 4 countries. And this year alone, we're going to be knocking on the door of building 90,000 beds. We've built and
Wow.
delivered almost 350,000, but we grow rapidly every year. And it's just because the need is there, and we have amazing community members that really wanna get their hands, dirty and
Yeah.
sweaty and solve this problem in their own communities.
That's incredible. And in order to enable that growth, can you speak a little bit more to what the funding model looks like, how it started, and how that's translated now to working with this vast array of different community organizations?
Absolutely, and thank you for asking. That's a very important question. When we have chapter presidents who are anybody, you got all sorts of people, never ran a business, never ran a nonprofit. You're talking to a guy that I'd never ran a nonprofit. I didn't even know what a C3 was, right? But we get these people coming in, and their number one concern is, I don't know if I can ask for money. I don't know how to do that. And I tell everybody, listen, at least my experience with sleeping on the peace, it is the easiest thing that you'll do. And let me tell you and we found along the way, Grayson, that we were, what do you call it, dumb luck or intentional? I don't know. But we found a model of how nonprofits, at least how I feel and how I train and consult other nonprofits of raising money, right? So here you are, a nonprofit, and I'll obviously use SHP as an example. We build beds for kids. That's what we do, right? A lot of nonprofits make the mistake of finding fundraisers. Now, I'm not going to say fundraisers are bad, but I will say when you take any energy and any focus that you take off of your mission, which our mission is to build and deliver beds for kids, right? If we take any focus off that, spaghetti feeds or concerts or even galas, right? You lose a little bit of the energy and the impact and the passion that goes behind that. No one wants to spend time putting together a pancake feed. I mean, they raise money. But and sometimes that's all those nonprofits have to do. But the trick here, Grayson, what I found is if you can find a way that your mission can be your profit center, your mission can be your fundraiser, maybe only 50% of it. But in our case, it is 100% of how we fund our mission. And then all of the other things that come along, grants and individual donations and things of that nature, they're just icing on the cake. We get our funding. Most of our funding comes from corporate events because what I found was not only is child bedlessness a problem, our number one problem, but there was another problem. And that was we live in a society, we live in a community of amazing people, amazing companies and organizations that want to give back. They just don't know how. I mean, there's a lot of initiatives out there, but those initiatives may not be organized well enough or be heard enough, or they're not scalable enough for companies that might have 10 to 200 people, volunteers that want to give back. And so I found that we provide a team building exercise for organizations that can bring their employees in, all who really care about their company's philanthropic efforts, their company's social responsibility. That's becoming more and more of an issue, especially with these millennials and these young kids. They get hired on with an organization, and if that organization is not giving back to the community, they will lose that employee, right? Which is a beautiful thing. And so I have found that we can provide a service and we can provide an event and a team building exercise for these organizations to bring their employees in. They give back to the community. It's a 501(c)(3, money's tax deductible. I mean, it checks all of these boxes that these guys are looking for. And probably one of the biggest things is we, as Sleeping on the Peace, it's super organized. So there's always some poor gal or guy in the philanthropic department of this organization trying to, rack their brain, trying to find an activity that's fun, that's scalable, that includes everybody, that's not hard. That's hard to do for these people. That's a nonprofit. It's hard. Well, we're a turnkey, right? And so funding for us, a lot of it comes from organizations. And the way we built it and budget our overall package is we put a dollar figure to every bed that this organization wants to build. So nationwide, the average is about $300 per bed because we provide mattress sheets, the whole delivery of the bed, the whole 9 yards. So now organizations can budget properly and know exactly how much is it if I want to build 20 beds with my 50 volunteers? How long will it take? Where is it going to be at? What do I need to provide, right? All of these answers or all these questions are answered in the snap of a finger. We already have the program. So now our fundraiser is actually our mission, building beds, right? So like you said earlier, we talked earlier, we don't spend money unless we have donated money to spend, and we don't spend that donated money unless we have a build day to build beds. So our mission is funded. I should say, our funding comes from the mission that we want to do, and our mission comes from the funding that gets provided. So it's a sweet circle. So we don't spend money if we don't have a build day, and we don't build unless we have money to spend. And so it's a unique model that I think has been very, very successful.
Thank you for sharing all of that context. And something that comes to my mind is that you must have had to say no a lot in order to have, maintained the mission and where it is
Yeah,
today. Can you tell
yeah,
me a little bit more as to how that has been? Because I'm sure there has been some
yeah.
opportunities to expand beyond just building the beds that have come knocking on the door. And I know how challenging that can be as a nonprofit leader to
Oh, yeah,
potential funding and potential grants.
yeah.
Can you
The
talk me down that a little bit more?
The worst word in nonprofits is no. Trust me, but it can be a savior. All of our chapter presidents are not paid. They're volunteers, some of which, including myself for many years, had a full-time job. And the one thing that we train on our chapter presidents is listen, when you start as a chapter president and you start seeing the impact that you make, you see this kid that's been sleeping on a pile of clothes or crates and you bring a bed to him and you feel the joy that comes from that. And then you read these stories of these other kids you want to help and you want to get more. And all of a sudden, all these corporations want to be a part of it as well. So they're throwing $5,000, $10,000, donations at you to do these builds. You can only go as fast as you can go, right? And it becomes very addicting and very overwhelming. So we teach chapter presidents, look, the hardest thing you're going to have to do being a chapter president isn't finding money. It's having to turn down money because these organizations are ran by great people that want to help these kids, and we're only limited by the time and effort that the chapter president and the core team has. So saying no is a very difficult thing to do, but a must, right? And we've experienced it. We've had chapter presidents that don't say no, and all of a sudden it's just them because their core team members are burnt out. And burnout is a very, very real thing. And if you don't plan for it, if you don't prepare for it and make adjustments to your program, then you're not going to have a program. And so, it's difficult. It's very difficult.
Yeah.
Well, most of our chapters, like the Austin chapter, for example, they have 1,100 kids on their waiting list. They probably have builds scheduled out almost the entire year in 2026, which means there are gonna be some people that come in that wanna donate or wanna build, and they're just gonna have to wait, and that's hard. We try to combine them together, the probably for me, the hardest one is when you get, like, a youth group that's like, "Oh, man, I got 20 kids and they wanna be involved." And I'm like, "Well, okay, but you gotta raise money. I can't have a build. We can't build these 20 beds unless I have $6,000, right?" And
Yeah.
and of course, some of these youth groups, they don't have that kind of money and stretch, and so trying to coordinate them with another build and stuff is just the key, but sometimes you can't, and it just the answer is no, and it just kills
Yeah.
you.
And what continuing down that theme, your day-to-day role, from what I understand, has shifted more to, managing these incredible partnerships and collaborations that you have for the organization. Walk me
Right.
down what makes a good partner for a nonprofit and SHP, and how do you align, the values of these business relationships and business partners for what y'all are doing at SHP? And also, have you also had to say no to any, potential partnerships as well that maybe weren't mission and value aligned?
It's a great question. Well, first of all, it's an excellent question because I get asked all the time, how do you set up national partners? And even companies right now that may be listening, how do you find a partner in a nonprofit? So listen, this is the approach I take. I set up what's called the partnership funding program. So what this is you take large organizations. I don't know, I'll give you an example, Ford Motor Company. In fact, I had my Ford hat on yesterday. Here's a large organization, and many like them, where they have multiple entities across the country, right? I think they have 19 or 20 or so manufacturing locations, right? And they employ thousands of people at these locations, right? Now, each location, if the organization that has any merit to them, they have their individual initiatives that they go after. There might be a corporate initiative like Jockey. They are heavy into foster care, right? Most of the time, these organizations in these different locations, each one of them do something different. One might help habitat, one might help the ocean, one might help dogs. I don't know. They each have their initiatives. Some of them, the initiative is we just donate to the United Way, which all of those things are great. The trouble with that is it doesn't have a continuity throughout the entire organization, right? So you take, and this isn't maybe a bad example, but someone like Ford Motor Company that's got these 20, think about these 20 plants or these 20 facilities, they're all doing different things. None of that gets really reported because it's all different. I mean, you can't say, hey, the Denver plant did this and the Detroit plant did that. I mean, that's a hard story to tell.
What's the
Where I
total
come in,
impact?
right, the total impact is great, but it's so segregated, it's so small, and it's just hard to tell a really compelling story. And let's be real, that's what employees want. They wanna know that their company is backing something, right? And if the company can't tell a very clear story, that's hard to do. And then the company wants public to know what they're doing. I think that's very important. There's a lot of companies that don't do anything, but there's a lot of companies that do. You just don't know about it. And so we come in with a partnership funding program that says, hey, listen, we're nationwide. So we have the ability to do builds in each one of these locations. And not only now, you might have a location that does 100 beds and one does 50 beds and one does 20 beds and blah, blah, blah. And that's great. But this can all be wrapped up into one initiative and quote, quote, the Ford Motor Company just built 3,000 beds in 2026. Those are big numbers. Those are big initiatives. Those are big impacts. And we can provide that, which is another problem that nonprofits don't do very well is gathering data so they can provide impact reporting. It's great that you have this service project and you're great that you have the sponsor and you get together and you do your initiative, you do your mission. But if you can't report that in a clear, consistent way, then you lose that. And that's really the responsibility of the nonprofit to report back to your donor. What is it that we just did? And how did we solve this? And what impact did we just provide? The more you can provide impact reporting and the more you can make this partnership share with this partnership exactly what it did, the more opportunities will be presented for yourself. So you nonprofits out there that are looking for ways to how do you partner up with it? Get your impact reporting in line, share with these companies a combined opportunity for marketing and co-branding and things of that nature that you can all come together and tell a very compelling story.
I love that. Can you speak a little bit to what it looks like when you're having these conversations? Because you have the wants of the donor, and then you have the service and mission of your organization, which is to build beds. And I assume that sometimes, that mission is not exactly in line with maybe what the
Right.
organization was maybe wanting. How do
Right.
you view it as your role to connect, their wants with the needs and mission of, SHP beds through those, shared values
Yeah.
that you have?
I mean, there's some organizations we just don't fit. I live 2 miles away from Chobani Yogurt. I mean, Chobani, everybody knows Chobani, the largest Greek yogurt manufacturer in the country, maybe even the world. The biggest plant's 2 miles away from me. We don't do anything with them because their initiatives about feeding kids and stuff like that. It's not nothing to do with this, right? Now, we might do an activity here and there, but on a national level, we don't. So where I focus a lot of my energy is the obvious, I don't want to call it low-hanging fruit because it is still difficult to get into. These are big wheels to turn, right? But these companies that align with their products, align with your mission if possible. So any mattress organization, any wood supplier, tool supplier. I
Yep.
mean, our we've got Maloof Mattress, which is a big mattress organization. We have DeWalt Tools, we have Flex Tools, and we have Lowe's.
Yeah,
These are all big partners that are very clear why it's easy to partner with us, right? So
of course.
product placement, if you will, if that's the right term, can be a big door or barrier you can overcome if you align. The second one is the initiative. So when you're talking to these organizations, you have to find out, okay, what is your initiative? Are we even on the same page, right? I'll give you a great example. So Jockey, their foster care, right? And their initiatives are foster care. Is Sleeping on the Peace solely centered around foster care? No. But we do support foster care. In the early days, it was greater than 10% of the beds that we supplied went to the foster care program. So, sometimes you have to stretch a
A
little
little bit
bit,
creativity.
a little creativity, exactly, of how those mission initiatives can combine and collect together. And sometimes they just don't. And that's okay. Trust me, there are so many other companies out there that you can find as your nonprofit that back and you want to. You don't want to force your initiative on someone. It's not their passion. Grace and I learned a long time ago. I mean, my own family, God bless them, they don't really do much with Sleep in Emily Peace. And at first, 12 years ago, it kind of bugged me, but now I totally understand. It's not their passion, right? Some of them, it's helping dogs. That's awesome. I mean, if that's your passion, go. So you can't force passion onto someone. And if you got an organization that has an initiative that you don't align with, maybe you can collaborate on an event, but give them a high five and move on to the next one.
I love that. That's great advice. This example with Jockey, I think, is incredible, right? Because it also shows where, maintaining that important mission that you have creates efficiency as well. Because I assume that Jockey, their efficiencies are not in creating beds for their foster youth.
No.
But in partnering with an organization as, Sleep in Heavenly Peace, that is your mission. So you're able to bring that, and through your partnership, you're creating, better, bigger impact for that foster community that you both serve.
That's right. Well, the biggest I was gonna tell you that the biggest hang up and danger that nonprofits are faced with is something called mission creep. So mission creep happens very easily in nonprofits. And what is mission creep? It is what it sounds like. It's having a mission and then going away from, or more like diluting your mission with other opportunities. And I'll give you a great example. When I first decided to be a 501(c)(3) nonprofit, because I didn't wanna be. That wasn't the goal here when I first started. I only went to the nonprofit that I knew here locally in Twin Falls, Idaho. It's called East End Providers. Now, when I walked into their it wasn't new house, but this newly donated house, man, Grayson, it was floor to ceiling, wall to wall stuff. I mean, it looked like a garage sale, right? I mean, it was coats and bikes and tires and shoes and I mean, everything under the sun. And I remember thinking, okay, I got a full-time job. There is no way in Adam I'm going to be able to manage and inventory and do. I can't do that. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to provide a bed, and that's all I'm going to do. So even then, I didn't know I was doing it at the time, but mission creep will kill a nonprofit. And what happens is when you have a mission and you start including and growing and bringing more people in, the people that come into these nonprofits have huge hearts. They want to give, they want to help. And so when they go into these homes and they're delivering a bed, or they go in these, these whatever the initiative, you go into these homes and you're providing a service, guess what you're going to see? You're going to see other services that these families need. So your big heart jumps in and says, "You know what? Well, if we're going to deliver a bed, we can also deliver this, and we can also deliver that." And all of a sudden, you just crept away from your mission. So mission creep will kill a nonprofit. And so back to national sponsors, they're no different. Whether it's for profit or nonprofit, they need to stay focused on what they are focused on. And so they're not going to spend time with someone that's not in line with either their work, their product, or certainly their corporate social responsibility initiatives. And so, you just like I said, you shake hands, say thanks, and good luck.
That's great context. And what has helped enable that as y'all have grown and scaled? Is it something that you are communicating to your staff on a constant basis?
Uh-huh.
Is it maybe connections and collaboration within the community where you connect them with an organization where that is their mission? What has gone into in terms of enabling your staff to still identify some gaps in the clients that you are serving and these incredible community members, and connecting them with maybe a nonprofit that can support those needs?
G Great question, and any nonprofit out there that wants to scale, you need to be ready to kinda be the bad guy. Not and that's a bad term. You need to be ready to keep the ship on its steady course. Trust me, we have a lot of, we've had a lot of heartache trying to steer what people have good intentions doing. We wanna provide teddy bears and books, and we wanna write scriptures on the slats because they feel like God brought them to this work, which he did, but that's not what we're about. It's funny, I'll give you another really and this one kinda still stings a little bit. We did this shirt, our Build Day shirts, and on the sleeve, I put the American flag, right? Well, we had some controversy with that, which is kind of in my day and age, it's kinda stupid. It's like, "You guys we're in America, of course we're gonna put American flag, blah, blah." Well, I ended up pulling it off, not because of anything I obviously love America, right? I love the country we're in, but I really had to look at myself and go, "What is it that we are pushing?" We're not pushing patriotic American, whatever. We're pushing beds for kids, right? And so when I had to ask these people that, "Look, you can't write scriptures on your slats, you can't bring pillow or not pillow, teddy bears and stuff like that." I had to humble myself too and say, "You know what? You're right. We need to stay focused on the mission." That is not easy for yourself to do. It's not easy to tell someone else not. And we've lost people because of that. But
Mm.
the beauty of it is it keeps the mission as simple and as transparent as possible. And it's done nothing but improved our ability to help more and more kids. And that's hard to do. That's hard to relay down to, the troops that are on the ground, the people that are in these homes that have big
Yeah.
hearts that wanna help.
That's what I was about to ask. What would be some advice that you would give, for an organizational leader that's in the shoes that you were in
Uh-huh.
terms of communicating that down to every layer of the organization? What has worked in that way?
Yeah, communication is by far the toughest thing to do. Number one, be transparent, right? We have a weekly newsletter that goes out, and I should say it's kind of a difficult question because depending on the size of your organization, granted, we communicated much differently back in the early day, right? Now, when you have 400 chapters and you're spread across the country, trying to communicate to literally thousands of people can be difficult. Organize SHP and split SHP up in regions, right? And so I guess the best thing I would say, the best advice is make sure that you structure your leadership and structure your organization in a way that's scalable. That's really important. And make sure that training and your ability to communicate in a quick, fast, and clear way, you've thought that through because you will have problems. Anybody that wants to grow outside of their own community, certainly their own state, really needs to get some consulting help on it because there are pitfalls, there are potholes that if you don't have a very good, our executive director, Jordan Allen, right now, my best friend in the world, he is excellent at preparing plans. We have an AOP, which is an annual operating plan, and he spells out exactly how we want to do things and how things are going to get organized. And the clearer you can make that, the less muddy down the road it becomes because it will, even as clear as you possibly can make it. It's the telephone game, right? It will get muddied down the road. So you got to be prepared for that. And don't lose your cool. It's going to happen. You got to remember, and I always tell people when people, let's call it quote, quote, argue or disagree with how you want to do things, it's only because they're super passionate about helping your initiative. I look at chapter presidents that argue about, oh, I want to build beds this way and I want to use that. And I have to tell them no and they get upset. I have to sometimes take a step back and go, okay, Joe Schmo here, he just really, really wants to help kids. And that's cool. We need to help him understand. First of all, you have to kind of think outside of your own community, right? You're not the only one building beds. There's reasons why we do this to protect you and protect other people. But you got to be transparent. You got to build a structure, a leadership structure. We call it the SHP family. And I
Yeah.
think that narrative is extremely important because families fight and disagree, and that's okay. But at the end of the day, you all have to agree on the direction we're going to go and love each other and pray for each other and
And, be united in that mission. Yeah.
united in the mission. That's right.
I love that. And, you mentioned, the plan, that AOP, and, we're at the end of, 2025, and, that's a time of reflection, celebration and planning. What
And
does
planning.
2026, look like for SHP beds, and what's gotten you excited?
Oh my gosh. Well, let me go that in reverse. What has got me excited the most, at least my role here, is I'm to the point now for whatever reason, my algorithms and social medias and all that. I'm getting to the point where I'm expanding. Like I do these podcasts as how I found you, right? I do these podcasts on a weekly basis. We're raising more awareness and have more connections with people, and people are hearing us more and more now than we have ever had. We're gonna reach just this year alone over $30 million in donations, which just blows my mind. But that's only because of the voices that now are hearing this child bedlessness issue.
I love that. How can our audience get involved? You mentioned that one that's gonna be, setting up that new chapter. What goes into that, and how do they get involved?
So, absolutely. My biggest initiative when I come on a podcast is number one, raise awareness. I want your audience to know that child bedlessness is a real issue, not a real word, but a real problem. And it's greater than 3% on average of the town that you live in. If you're in a town of 100,000 people, there literally are 3,000 kids sleeping on the floor.
Mm.
So please share what you hear today. Open your mouth. It's so unknown. The only way we're going to find out about it and solve this is doing it together and sharing. I ask your audience, please share today what you hear about child bedlessness. And number two, if you want to get involved, go to shpbeds.org. There's a bunch of ways. Of course, you can donate. And the way we set this up, Grayson, I'm a farm kid from Idaho. I didn't want to be some big national nonprofit. You send your money off, you don't know where it goes, you pray it goes to the right place. I'm happy to say 96% of your donation stays in the community that you donated it to. So you can pick Austin, Texas, and your money's gonna go to that chapter. We pull 10%. So we pull, so 90 cents stays there, but then we pay for some of your expenses at the chapter level. So when the dust all settles, it's 96% of that dollar stays and goes to directly to helping build beds in your community. All the beds stay there. So you can donate, you can volunteer. If you have a chapter local, contact the chapter president. We need core team members to show up once in a while for help building. Go deliver a bed. I promise you, it'll change your freaking life. It's crazy to see these kids, these little 6-year-old boy hiding behind mom because this stranger's in his room, and then all of a sudden he recognizes that he's getting a bed for the first time. Grayson, you want to see a kid react? That changes your life. When he comes and hugs you and kisses the bed because he's never had one before. These are the things that you can't experience unless you go, and you can. And if God forsake, you don't have a chapter in your area and this really touches your heart, we have on our media page on our website, you can read and hear stories of other people like yourselves that have started chapters and what it's done for them, let alone the kids in their community. You can click on Start a Chapter tab on our website and learn how to become a chapter president. I'm not going to say it's like the process, I think, is easy, right? We teach you everything you know. We fly you out to Utah. We go through a 3-day training with you on how to build a bed, how to run a nonprofit, teach you all the things that we prepare you for. We actually even give you money to get started out, right? We make it as easy as possible because we don't want any barriers to entry when it comes to you wanting to help kids in your own area. We need you. The kids there need you. And so there's lots of ways that you can get involved, right? It all starts with going to our website, shpbeds.org.
Luke, thank you for coming on and sharing about the need as you spoke to, and also the incredible model that your organization has built upon in
Amazing.
terms of creating that sustainable impact that can go bigger than just your hometown and grow to support the youth and children of the entire United States and hopefully eventually the world. So, Luke, thanks for coming on today and sharing all this with our audience.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me, Grayson.